And we are live. Quiet, Calvin. Katie, whenever you want, I will start the webinar and that will let attendees in.
Yeah, it's just about 6. That sounds good.
Okay. And we should see that start to populate now.
Okay, that's great. Thanks everybody for joining. We're just going to give everyone a few minutes.
Well, about the food though.
We're just giving it a couple of minutes, folks. We'll let the room populate.
What do you think? Should we kick off? You're on mute, but I think you're saying yes.
I got a total of 20 people so far, 21 now. So I
Yeah.
think that's a good place to start. If you'd like, I'll start with roll call.
Great. Let me stop my share of my screen for a second.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, I can see everybody. I am going to mute everybody right now. For some reason, oh, no wonder. So I'm muting everybody right now. So we will call roll. Board members, when I call your name, please unmute yourself, acknowledge this, and then mute yourself again. If you were a board member but not a member of this committee, I'm going to write your name down, and at some point during the meeting, I will acknowledge that you're here as well. So let's start with Cesar Zuniga.
Present.
Thank you. Catherine Walsh.
Present.
Thank you. Nick Azadian.
Present.
Thank you. Stacy Boyd. Gladys Bruno. Cynthia Felix.
Present.
Thank you. John Fontillis. John, you're muted if you're trying to speak.
I was just trying to hit the space bar. I thought that worked. I'm here.
Thank you, John. Cynthia Gonzalez. Zach Jassy. Christina Lem. Sam Sierra. Again, if you are a board member but not a committee member, I will be writing your name down and we'll acknowledge that you are here during the meeting. You can take it away. Yeah.
So welcome, everyone. My name is Cesar Zuniga, and I'm the chair of Community Board 7. Thank you all for coming today to a really important conversation that is way overdue in this community and in this district, specifically around these last mile facilities. Lots and lots of questions, lots and lots of concerns, and obviously we want to bring the community into a conversation about what some of those questions are, what some of the concerns are, and more than anything, what are some of the possible solutions, right? I think the last mile facilities represent just another burden in this community, particularly as it relates to traffic, particularly more specifically truck traffic. As I think most of you know, the community board has been at the forefront of engaging with DOT around a much more comprehensive and focused analyses of truck traffic in our district. And here we are still with no answers, with no real information or data. What is true and what is apparent to all of us is that we are seeing an increase traffic flow all around the district. What is also true and really evident is that we've lost a lot of our neighbors and community members along 3rd Avenue. And I think we really are at a point where we need accountability. And so the purpose of tonight, and I'm going to turn it over to Catherine in a second, is to kind of level set. And, you know, I'm really hoping to learn a lot more from folks who are part of this conversation today, including some of our elected officials, our counterparts in CB6, and to really begin to understand the way forward with this, and how we're going to hold folks accountable and how we're going to get some answers to our questions, and more than anything, some solutions to what I think we all agree is a pretty substantial problem in our district. So again, I won't take up a lot of time. Just wanted to thank you, welcome you, and I'll turn it over to Katie Walsh, who will be facilitating tonight's meeting. Thank you, Katie, for taking this on.
Great, thanks. And thanks to the community members who are joining and the Community Board 7. And we have an incredible group of panelists that are also here with us. So I just want to give everyone a quick tour of the agenda with what we're hoping to accomplish tonight. And we will have our Community Board 7 members provide some of their, why they're coming to this committee, their interest in this committee. We'd like to then turn to the public and understand to kind of capture some of these key issues. And then we have this incredible roundup of panelists from key organizations and representatives that are going to provide some additional context and thought and issues related to this. And then if we have questions, turn back to our community board members, and then again come back to public comment. So there'll be these two places that we really want to again hear and engage with our neighbors. I wanted to just progress, see if this works. Can you all see that slide in terms of the invitations? Is that coming up?
Yes,
on this?
it is.
Okay,
it's
great.
dedicated.
Okay, that's great. So just to say, for invitations, this is the first meeting of the special subcommittee meeting. And what we're doing is this is a fact-finding, information gathering exercise, in the heading of the direction of transparency and accountability. We have invitations were sent out to everyone that you can see on this list. And again, we're really pleased, as of 5 o'clock, all the participants who have confirmed that they're here with us today. today. So again, thank you for being here. And, we anticipate there will be future meetings, and we hope to have our elected representatives join us in future meetings. I believe, I just want to see, I might need Jeremy's help before we jump to this Community Board 7 members to the committee, just to recognize if we have any electeds who've joined us.
Councilman Menchaca is here right now.
Menchaca. Okay, so I'd like to recognize Carlos for a second. Carlos, are you there?
Let me ask him to unmute. Perhaps he stepped away for a moment.
Okay. All right. So then let's go straight into this first agenda item, which is to the community board members who have joined us tonight. If you can just, provide us just very quickly, your interest and some of the key considerations that you have. We'll keep it short because we really want to get to the community and the panelists. So what I might do, Jeremy, is need your help with this in terms of opening the lines.
Board members could raise their hands. We could call on them in order.
Great.
Katie, I'm seeing no hands yet. So perhaps you'd like to give your interest.
Okay, great. I will lead off, and then if any other community board members want to jump in, and I see 2 have gone, but air travels, one of the key considerations that I'm thinking about is the traffic considerations, the air quality, and the extremely high asthma rates that we have in our district. I'm really incredibly concerned about safety, pedestrian safety, bike safety, human safety, the schools that are along 3rd and 4th Avenue, and these trucks. I'm interested in alternative routes. I'm interested in understanding what alternatives exist, what that looks like, and understanding, the use of the waterfront, and other ways of engaging on these key issues. So those are 3 for me at the top. And it looks like we've got a few hands now.
So I have John Fontillis first.
Great.
Is my voice coming out?
Yes, it is.
Hi, John Fontillis, 30-year resident of the district, land use chair, CB7. As you said, Katie, traffic, 3rd Avenue, pedestrian safety, obviously important. And I have to say, every time I think about ordering something from Amazon, I don't really think I understand the downstream effects. So I think hopefully we can understand, the convenience of what that provides us. It does have real world issues attached to it. So maybe if I can not buy so much from Amazon and buy some stuff from 5th Avenue merchants, David Estrada, if you're there, I think we'd all be better off.
Thank you, John. Katie, should I continue to call people in order?
That would be helpful. Thanks, Jeremy.
No problem. I have Genesis Aquino next.
Hi, I am interested mostly to learn about this trucking situation, but also we're learning about all the interactions and intersection it has to do with housing and all the residents in Sunset Park. I think Katie mentioned most of the factors, which is, mostly environmental, asthma rate, etc. So just here to learn mostly and see how we can work together with the housing committee.
Thank you. I have Nick Azadian next.
So I'm not going to repeat what everybody else has said because it's all of those things and more, but also kind of how this intersects with some of the other industrial businesses that are down on the waterfront. Everything is tied together, and these trucking facilities are largely coming in because they're as of right. Whereas if other industry could be encouraged in that area, perhaps you may have less of this. So it's that, and then also, obviously the pollution concerns and the traffic concerns, and really trying to mitigate some of the effects of this or outright stop them if it's possible.
Thank you, Nick. Katie, I have no additional panelist hands up. I do have one attendee's hands up. Three attendees hands up now. Attendees, we just ask you to wait a few moments. We will get to you very shortly.
That's great. So maybe I'll just do, is there final call? No other hands from community
Yes,
board members? Oh,
Eva
are there any,
Hayward.
are there any community board members?
Oh,
And then we're going to get to panelists very shortly.
okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Eva.
Sorry.
No, thank you. I think
I
with
see
that,
no other board members' hands up, Katie.
okay, thank you. So maybe we'll go to the members of the community, public comment, questions.
So I have four. I have Jimmy Attilas first. Jimmy, you can unmute yourself now.
Good evening, all. Hi, I'm a resident of Sunset Park for the past 55 years. And my concern about Third Avenue is especially for the school areas. We have about 5 schools on Third or 4 schools and a couple of chapels and churches there. And I know everyone thinks Third Avenue is a commercial area, but it's really a residential area. And I don't understand why they don't put either small speed bumps by the schools and for the safety of the crossing guards. And also I kind of miss Inspector Gonzalez because I see all the municipal waste trucks still on Third Avenue, parked on Third Avenue, where they shouldn't be on Third Avenue. They should be on Second Avenue with all the other trucks. And I don't see any action taking care of that. But then again, Inspector Gonzalez is no longer with us. And just the safety issues of how the flow of traffic. And for the cyclists in the neighborhood, it's terrible because I'm a cyclist myself and I've almost got hit by a truck just going to 43rd Street early in the morning, right after work.
Thank you, Jimmy. Before I call on the next people, I just want to acknowledge, I also have the attendance for marked for Beverly Kleinman, John Johnston, Patricia Ruiz, and Genesis Aquino. The next person I have is Carolina Salgaro. Carolina, you could unmute yourself.
Oh, okay.
And you could speak. Carolina? Carolina?
Is it unmuted?
Yes, you're unmuted. Okay.
Sorry. Okay. I thought I had clicked on mute. So I'm Carolina Salguero. I run the maritime nonprofit Portside, New York. We are actually in CB6, but in Red Hook. But Red Hook is also facing a crisis of e-commerce warehouses, 4, maybe 5, maybe 3. And what we want to advocate for is for moving as much of the inbound freight by water as possible. And we know a designer and owner of a hybrid freight ferries who's willing to donate one of his ships for an event during the day. And what we're proposing is to use that freight ferry to go to the waterside e-commerce sites in Sunset and Red Hook, followed up by, and because of COVID, we can't pack the boats. So a limited number of people could be on the boats, follow up sort of Zoom meeting, or if we can get a big space like Pioneer Works or the Brooklyn Cruise Terminal for a kind of town hall situation to talk about this. And Portside also really wants to advocate that the city change its rules that mandates maritime use of waterfront property by some tool, the way that public access to waterfront property has been mandated when there's a rezoning or something. Because there's all of this waterfront property that used to be robustly used in maritime ways, and it's not being used for maritime. And so many of these warehouses in your neighborhood and ours are right on the water and could be doing stuff by water.
Thank you, Carolina. Everybody's doing great on time right now. Just a reminder, if you look at the agenda, public comment right now is limited to 3 minutes. And if you look at my view, I have the clock. I will put it up so you can time yourself. The next person I have is John Santori. John, oh, sorry, hit the wrong button. I guess, John, you can unmute yourself. I don't see you. Any controls for that? Hang on, John. I'm promoting you to a panelist. You could unmute yourself there.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. So I live on 56th Street, and I'm here to learn first of all, what our elected officials know about these projects. I do have a timer going, so I'm definitely not going to go over 3 minutes here. We know that Councilman Menchaca hosted a meeting along with Nydia Velasquez in July of 2019 regarding the UPS facility. That was a Red Hook meeting with a lot of community members. It was seemed to be prompted by concerns over the destruction of the Lidgerwood building, which has been almost entirely removed. But to my knowledge, that was the only public meeting with any elected officials about any of these facilities. So we have at least 5. We've got 4 in Red Hook, and we've got the massive Sunset Industrial Park site, 1.3 million square feet. Biggest one in the city, as far as I know. And certainly the only one of any comparable size just blocks away from homes and businesses. So I would love to know everything Councilman Menchaca knows about all of these projects, who he's engaged with, all of the elected officials who represent this area. Have they had any contact with the developers? Have they had any contact with the engineers? What do they know? The second thing is, I think it's really important to know what DOT knows. DOT has been working for several years on a smart truck management plan. But everybody I talked to, I've heard this from Brad Lander, from Councilman Menchaca, it seems like there's relatively little knowledge beyond a few public presentations from DOT about how that plan would impact these kinds of facilities. A third thing to look into is what kind of legislation could impact these facilities. Councilman Menchaca's spokesman recently traded emails with me and basically said that there's nothing you can do legally to block these facilities now because it would be unconstitutional. It would be considered a taking of property value that already exists, and therefore the community would get sued or the city would get sued. I'd like to know more about the legalities of that. And I'll also like to know about legislative vehicles going forward that could impact these facilities. And finally, I'd like to know, I would encourage the community to try to figure out how it can directly engage these developers. If these facilities are going to happen, first of all, are there ways to make them, for example, work in a more maritime friendly way?
This is subcommittee.
I'm sorry, I'll just finish up in 10 seconds. Are there any ways to engage with them on other uses of the site? Remember, this is an entirely new industry that didn't even really exist more than 10 years ago. I think it's possible to engage with these developers and perhaps convince them that they could be doing something else with some of these properties. Only 2 of them are going up right now. 3 of them, they're just clearing space, so they haven't gone up yet. And of course, nothing has happened on Sunset Industrial Park yet. So there's a lot to be done. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Katie, I believe I have one more hand up, but I believe the councilman is available now.
Okay, that's great. Let's recognize a council member. Is that who we heard? Is that Carlos Menchaca?
Yep, I got a text. Councilman Menchaca, you could unmute yourself. Perhaps he's having some technical problems.
Okay, fair enough.
We'll go back to the
Hey,
list.
hey, just let you know, I'm in Red Hook and Colossus right now at a anti-gun violence peace march. So that's where he is right now.
Gotcha.
But I'll tell him to pick up his iPad.
Well, we have 2 people who are going to speak, so tell them in 5 minutes.
Okay, 10-4.
So I have Maria Roca next. Hang on. Maria, you can unmute yourself.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, needless to say, like others have said, all of the above. But in addition, I will add that after all the work that this community has done and Red Hook as well, for decades, to gain access to the waterfront, fighting for parks, fighting for like Bad being a more welcoming place for the community at large, as well as the new park. these trucks kind of run counter to access to the waterfront for the community and for New York City as a whole, not just the immediate community. So clearly, the maritime approach, that's what we're known for throughout Brooklyn. This is why the industry was there, and that's how the industries were supplied. So to me, it's a no-brainer that no one has said, yes, you can put it there, but you cannot, limit the number of trucks, the number of trips, the type of trucks, the many things, that dedicated routes and intensive attention from the police, the NYPD, to enforce those routes, which I don't see. I'm on 41st between 5th and 6th, and you cannot imagine, with 2 humps between 5th and 6th, and you cannot imagine the number of trucks that find their way down 41st Street, 41st Street, because when they're trying to avoid 39th Street or whatever. So I think more attention from the NYPD would certainly help, but it has to be a concerted effort. It's not just one approach to ameliorating the situation and lessening the impact on the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. I have one hand up, but I have 3 people named Felicia DeVita. So the Felicia DeVita whose hand is up, you could unmute.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm a member of the community. I live on 28th Street between 3rd and 4th Avenue. And we have a mixed use block, and most people forget that it's a lot of families on that block. We have 14 multifamily homes with a lot of young children on the block. Over the years, we've requested the speed hump. We've requested truck restrictions, which we do have a sign up without any enforcement. The problem we're having with a lot of these 53-foot trailers is these streets are not built for 53-foot trailers to make those turns and come down. Often I'm sitting with a 5-year-old in the backseat of my car, waiting for 25 minutes to get down my block for them to figure out how to adjust themselves to get around our block. They've taken off our mirrors. I don't let my son play outside anymore because I'm afraid a ball's going to go in the street, and a 53-foot trailer going at really high speeds is going to hit my child or another child. And this is the accident that was waiting to happen in this community. Ever since they built Liberty View and Amazon has taken over, and Fresh Direct and all those other companies, their trucks use 28th Street as an alternate route when they get off the highway to come down to make that turn in the left direction. I know this is a facility that's going to go to the right, but without designated truck routes that make sense, our community is getting hit, and our community is leaving. We're all leaving. And this is a house that my family has owned, or my husband's family has owned, for 87 years. And my mother-in-law just passed this February, and she grew up there. And we're going to be the generation that leaves with all of these changes and these trucking facilities without any enforcement or anything that's going to protect our community. I made it under time.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
And everybody did well on time. Thanks.
Thank
Katie, oh no, I have another Felicia DeVita.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm
No
assuming
canceling.
you shared your link.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, I must have hit it. I'm on my phone, so I must have did
Okay.
something. I didn't
Okay.
intend to. My apologies.
No problem. No problem. Thank you. Katie, back to you.
Great. Do we have the council member? I was trying to figure out what was. Okay.
If we don't have him, perhaps
Fine.
Dan can update us.
Trying to compete and be against each other.
Look,
No. Okay.
he's getting on.
Nothing.
He's getting on, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So I'll just I'll keep going from here. So this next section again, or next part of the agenda. Sorry, can we mute everybody? Or is this Carlos?
Hi, everyone.
Okay, great. Hi, Carlos.
Wait, can you all see me? Do I have my video on?
Yes, we can see you and hear you.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. I One, I'm just so thankful that there is a subcommittee on last mile trucking. It's an important thing, and I think CB6 needs to create one as well. So let's figure out how we share the love. One, I just want to say that the Congress member and I have been working on this for a while with you all, and DOT promised us a truck study that was due December 2020. We still haven't seen it, and we continue to ask for it. DOT continue to promise it. They continue to promise both our offices and the community board, and especially the kind of epicenter of all of this is in Red Hook. We just have lost our patience with them. There's a new DOT commissioner who I confronted at a public hearing I think it was like yesterday. And we are looking at a package of bills that we introduced as a council just this last stated. These bills are going to address last mile delivery in a couple different ways. And I wanted to share some of that with all of you. Part of it is that the bills are just a start to this larger discussion, but we want to continue to hear from all of you about how we can actually confront this. We know that a special permit, and this is an idea that has come out of Red Hook and Sunset Park, that a special permit can actually curb the impacts and actually stop this kind of development and allow us to build a lot more requirements before we allow for this kind of and very new development. But the current city planning is not with us, but we need to continue to share that voice from our community. But there is new administration coming, and I'm hoping that both the council and the next administration not only understand it, but can take this on day one. There's also an alternative that allows us to utilize rail and docks to help transport last mile goods. I think this is something that was just spoken to by some of you already. And so not only do I support that, but I think that we need to really bring in more infrastructure dollars, capital dollars to make that happen. And that's where agencies like EDC can make that a reality. So long story short, I'm just here to just give you assurance that we're working on it. We're going to keep working on it, and you can continue to lead on this because of the work that you're doing, and the Congress member and I and staff are going to continue to listen. So thank you so much, and I can't wait to listen to all of you about some of the ideas that are coming. That's it for me.
Thanks, Carlos.
Yeah, and thanks Katie for really leading this discussion.
Okay, so Jeremy, with your help, we're going to move to our panelists, and I know we have a couple of representatives from Uprose.
Sure. So I will call on them in a moment. I just want to acknowledge that we've been joined by board members Cindy Vanden Bosch and Zachary Jassy. Zach is also a member of the committee. I believe, so we have several members from Uprose. I'm not sure if Elizabeth wants to speak first, but this is certainly the opportunity, or if there's somebody else specifically to speak on behalf of Uprose, you can unmute yourselves now.
Well, thank you, Jeremy. I won't be speaking, but it's wonderful to see all of you and really looking forward to the opportunity of working on this issue with you since we've done so much work on transportation, justice, and amenities. We have joining us today Nicole Hernandez-Hammer, who's our community environmental scientist, Summer Sandoval, who's our energy democracy coordinator, and Eva Hanhart, who you know is someone who has been a distinguished professor at Pratt. So they will be sharing with you their observations and fielding questions, and hopefully we can get enough information so that we could move forward in coming up with a strategy or some ways that we can address this threat to an industrial waterfront who we are hoping will continue to build for climate adaptation, mitigation, and resilience, and move away from these kinds of practices that are harming a community that has been particularly vulnerable to COVID. So thank you for the opportunity.
Hi, good evening. As Elizabeth mentioned, my name is Nicole Hernandez Hammer, and I'm the staff environmental scientist at UPROS. And I'll just start our comments with quickly mentioning some of our concerns around air pollution and air quality caused by idling trucks. Idling vehicles release significant amounts of harmful chemicals, gases, and particulate matter and pollution such as soot into the air, contributing to ozone, regional haze, and climate change. Poor air quality can contribute to asthma and other respiratory diseases. And Sunset Park is one of the top 5 Brooklyn communities with the highest lung cancer rates. We know that Sunset Park has been disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And as the community begins to recover, adding even more air pollution to the community poses a serious public health hazard and implications for our residents. And with that, I'll just hand it over to my colleague, Summer Sandoval.
Thanks, Nicole. I want to start off with, really saying, we're glad to be part of this conversation and, definitely want to have a deeper understanding of some of the previous conversations. Would definitely like to be, more information on the package of bills that the council member mentioned, and just have an understanding, overall timeline of these different projects. As we all know that these projects and these proposals for as of right e-commerce development within Sunset Park and Red Hook are not one-off issues, and that they're part of a broader and citywide issue on e-commerce, specifically within industrial areas, not only in New York City, but across the country. And so, given that there are limited tools legally, to regulate these projects, really looking at what can be built and what case studies and what is being done in other cities to address these issues. Like many people have mentioned, the issues around trucking and traffic and pedestrian safety, wanting to really also add in, the really essential need to have an understanding of the impacts of e-commerce facilities, that these types of studies haven't been done, and that we really need a comprehensive understanding of these impacts, not only traffic related, but health and safety, and impacts on existing infrastructure like our roads and sidewalks and other areas that people are using in the community. And really have our understanding of what are the comprehensive impacts, and then understanding how those impacts are going to look like aggregated with all of these sites popping up in close proximity to each other, and where we can go from there. So, with that, I do really want to hand it off to Eva Hanhart, who has, worked in city planning for many decades in New York City and has extensive knowledge on zoning and use groups and land use, who will speak to some in more detail about some of the specific examples happening in across municipalities with this issue. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Summer. So I want to just address a few of the things. Many of the things have already been mentioned, but what is really interesting is that New York City has not, in the planning department, has not defined what e-commerce is. It is not listed in the zoning resolution as a use. It is being treated currently as if it were an ordinary warehouse, which it is not. It does not function like an ordinary warehouse. And that has been, in fact, a major problem, because there are elements of e-commerce that need to be looked at as unique and new forms of activity and forms of delivery and distribution. So first of all, the fact that it is not defined in the zoning resolution and there are no regulations in the zoning resolution have to be addressed. Two, this is an example, as Summer pointed out, This is an issue that is being considered across the United States. The state of Massachusetts has just released a major study with recommendations on how e-commerce can be dealt with in the larger Boston region and throughout the state. In California, there are municipalities that have already done regulations that they have passed that do not allow these kind of facilities up to a certain size at all, or if they are huge, or if they are, in some other instances, they are allowed only through a special permit where certain criteria, performance criteria, many of the things that people have called for are part of what a permit or a review would involve. Because currently they do not go through ULURP, they do not go through an environmental review, and they're being treated as if they were the same as another use that they are not. There has been a precedent already set with self-storage here in the city. There is absolutely no excuse for not addressing it. So there are no requirements for electric vehicles, for example, but electric charging is now listed. I mean, the zoning resolution has to come into the 21st century, much less 2021. And there are other things that I can answer if people have questions, but at a minimum, that has to be the case, that at least there is a definition and there are standards.
Thank you. Thank you, Eva. We have a few other panelists who joined us. Jeremy, I might need your help.
Happy to help. I don't want to just spring it on anybody. So panelists, if you would like to speak, I don't want to just call on you and if you don't want to say anything, but panelists, if you'd like to speak, please use the raise hand function. I'd be more than happy to call on you. Katie, I do believe you have spoken to some prior to this meeting and know of their participation, and I
yes, so
referring to Eric McClure, who just put his hand up.
Yeah, from CB6. Yeah, and just for folks who are tuning in, so we've heard some perspectives from our panelists. We'll continue, and then we'll go to some questions. To recognize Eric from CB6.
Thanks, Katie, and thank you for inviting us. I'm Eric McClure. I am the first vice chair and transportation co-chair of Community Board 6. We certainly share CB7's concerns about the proliferation of last mile facilities. We have an issue, especially in Red Hook, where there are at least 4 or 5 last mile facilities planned or proposed at this juncture, and by my calculations, in excess of a total of 2 million square feet of space. Dozens of large truck deliveries coming in overnight and hundreds of van deliveries going out during the day. I think Eva made a number of good points, but especially the idea that these have not been dealt with by the city in terms of what they really are. The zoning code doesn't address it. All of the projects, by our understanding, are as of right in Red Hook. We have been trying to engage the Department of Transportation to do a Red Hook specific truck study in addition to the long promised smart truck management plan that's now well overdue. We've reached out to DOT on a number of occasions regarding doing a comprehensive truck study for Red Hook, which they have not undertaken yet. We are told that they are working on something, and the important reason for the truck study is that DOT is probably at this juncture the one city agency that might have some ability to influence these projects because they are responsible for approving curb cuts. Since these projects are as of right, they can be built, but DOT does have the right to analyze and approve curb cuts in and out of these facilities. So it underscores the importance of studying the effects of the cumulative effects of trucks on the communities. We share all the concerns that others have raised here. about truck traffic and the safety of all the other vulnerable road users, the environmental effects. If these are not electric trucks, then there are huge emissions concerns. So there are a myriad of issues that these facilities would bring to the neighborhood. So we appreciate the opportunity to join with you this evening. We look forward to being a part of these ongoing conversations and in sharing as much of our learning or expertise as we can. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. And is there anyone else who joined with you from CB6?
I don't think Mike is
Okay.
here. Mike
Okay.
Rashopa, our district manager.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks. Yeah. Thanks for coming. This is definitely going to be a district and wide effort across the board. Jeremy, are there other panelists from other elected offices who joined us?
So there are, and Dan Wiley just raised his hand.
Oh,
so
great. Thanks. Hi, Dan.
I have a growing dog war here, so I'm going to stay muted.
Okay. Okay. All right. We'll go to Dan.
All right, well, I'm here. You hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm here with the preacher, Carlos, and my associate from Congressman Nydia Velasquez's office, Melissa Devalle Ortiz. We just had a march against gun violence, and I just wanted to say that I've worked closely with Carlos Menchaca's office, with Renee when she was there, mapping out the last mile delivery sites, and there are like 6 of them. And you go from UPS to Amazon, actually has 3 sites in Red Hook. You cross Kiwanis Bay and you have Sunset Industrial Park, where FedEx is, where Dove Hertz is building a bigger facility for FedEx. We actually spoke with Dove Hertz. We spoke with Amazon. We try to get more information about when they're opening and what their plans are, and can they be part of a solution to actually mitigate, since they have waterfront sites. Can we have a delivery by water? Can we look at the truck routes and make sure communities aren't impacted? So I think there's a lot more discussion. Also, I would say that we have a new DOT commissioner, Hank Gutman, who we know very well. I worked with him for 20 years. I worked for the Congresswoman for 21 years. And we had a study with Hank when he was with Fire Brooklyn Bridge Park, LDC, to look at a transportation access study for Brooklyn Bridge Park, other than vehicles, pedestrian, safety, access to the waterfront, mass, public transit, looking at other pedestrian ways and bike paths. So he also is chair of the Brooklyn Navy Yard Development Corporation. He's on the board. And so he thinks a lot about freight. He's also on the expert panel on the BQE because the community came together and said you have to deal with the Gowanus Expressway as well as the BQE in Brooklyn Heights and the trench when it goes through Carroll Gardens and when it's in Williamsburg. So from El Puente to Uprose, we're focused on the freight issues along that corridor in a more holistic way. So the expert panel that Hank was part of actually had a lot of recommendations on management, demand management, and the way that traffic works. And now that he's DOT commissioner, I had a conversation with him, and he had a conversation with New York City EDC on Freight NYC, because there is a Freight NYC program. I'm hopeful that we can kind of work together as communities that are affected with DOT and a lot of the legislation that's going on to try to leverage as much as possible to mitigate and come up with clean, sustainable solutions. And I think the waterfront site, the last thing I'll say is that the Freight NYC and the Maritime Highway, the waterfront and the use of the water for freight and rail that runs through the community is a big opportunity. And I would point out that I spoke with Dove Hertz, and he has a site in Staten Island where he exports trash by rail, and it's on a waterfront site in Staten Island. So he owns that. And so he has this potential for moving stuff by rail and barge. But it's just, at this point, he says the market is not supporting it. But we have an infrastructure bill coming up. And the infrastructure bill, as you know, is multifaceted. So we're really going to have our eyes on the prize on trying to get infrastructure funding to actually make the marine and rail be a real alternative to reducing truck traffic. So I know there's a lot to work on, and I think it's great that you guys are forming a committee. I'm looking forward to CB6 doing the same.
Thanks, Dan. And I think some of the things that we started off with the top is getting accountability and transparency around all of these different, pieces of information. So to the, follow-up points that include things around discussions that have happened with the developers in terms of having those memorialized, those minutes, being able to share that so that it's very clear and can be delivered to the community and the community board, but generally in terms of what those conversations, have included outside of, this forum today. This is the start to provide that would be helpful.
And I just make a little footnote that the conversation we had in February was really just to try to get basic information that wasn't out there, which Renee with Carlos's office did put together a presentation, and I updated it a bit since Renee left, so I can share that with the committee, the latest of what we were able to glean so far.
Yeah, that would be, if you guys have that by way of, if you all have that by way of a presentation you can share as part of the follow-ups, that'd be helpful, Dan. I want to recognize, thanks. I want to recognize a few of the other representatives from elected.
One other hand up from another rep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Jenny Zhang.
Hi, everybody. Can you see and hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you to Community Board 7 and the organizers for convening this meeting. I just wanted to provide an update from the office of Marcella Matenis, Assembly Member. We actually just came from a meeting with UPS. We'd been trying to have a meeting with them for a few weeks now, and trying to get an update on kind of the Red Hook facility that is coming. It wasn't a super fruitful meeting in that they couldn't disclose a lot. They're saying that they're putting their property back on the market. They're engaging a broker to just kind of explore their options. So they were super non-committal. They wouldn't say whether they're actually going to sell, what the timelines were. They very much said, this doesn't mean we're selling. We might sell to someone and lease the facility back to use for UPS. Not super clear, but we tried to get a little more information on the environmental concerns that I think are shared by many people here. How much additional truck traffic would this be? What would this mean for air pollutants in the area? We tried to get information on hiring. What are the additional hires that would be made? Is there any local hiring initiatives, anything on that front? And just, their tone was very non-committal. They said they couldn't really share anything because nothing's set in stone, because they're going through this process with the broker. They don't have any concrete plans. So, just really frustrating from our office in terms of just trying to get information. And I'm wondering, Dan is talking about just working together and maybe on the legislative front to demand a little more accountability, a little more transparency. I think our office is definitely very interested in working with you all to see what can be accomplished there, given that, going directly to the entities as we kind of did was not a super fruitful avenue. In addition to that, they did mention wanting to explore the waterfront, the waterways as an alternative to trucking. Very much second Carolina's comments about, trying to make use of the waterways, but making sure that we are entrusting the right entity to kind of facilitate that. And I know my colleague Emmett is also here on this meeting. I'm not sure if there's anything that I've missed, but wanted to provide that update in case it is new knowledge to the people here. I know that you guys are also in direct conversations with a lot of these developers and the owners of the facilities themselves as well. So thank you for all the work here. And we're just, happy to be here and to learn more about the overall, area and the projects that are being contemplated.
Thank you. Katie, I have a board member's hand up.
Great. So if there's no other, thanks, Jenny. And if there's no other elected reps, why don't we go now to questions from CB7 board members, and then we'll go back to public comment questions. So John?
Thanks, Katie. I was wondering if I could just ask a question, and maybe this is to Eric at CB6 or maybe John Santor. What exactly are we talking about? What is a last mile distribution facility, fulfillment center? What type of trucks? Eric, you mentioned that you had a bunch of 53-foot long trucks coming in overnight, but then vans coming out in the morning. But what exactly are we talking about? What is this facility? What is it used for?
John, I'd be happy to try to address that. And let me refer to some notes I took, as we had Mike and I had a call with Amazon back at the end of January just to talk to them about what they were contemplating. And they were, at that point, had not committed to any facilities in Red Hook, but were looking at the possibility of 2 sites.
I'm sorry, Eric, I don't mean to interrupt, but I was actually specifically asking about the one that's under construction next to IKEA, the multi-story one. Is that Amazon? Is that the Amazon site?
280 Richards, I believe, is the one you're referring to. And I believe Amazon has leased or is planning to lease about 450,000 square feet in that facility. And just to give you an idea of what we're talking about in terms of truck, this is what they told us, that product comes in overnight on larger trailers, the 53-foot trailers. And they said that it's generally 8 to 12 truck trips, and then maybe an additional 1 or 2 during the day, and up to 15 or 20 on holidays. And then on the outgoing side, the goods go out on vans, 20 to 30 vans per wave, 4 to 5 waves per day. The vans are out all day, and then 150 to 200 van trips during the holidays. So that would be a typical, large scale Amazon site.
Essentially, these are goods that are brought in by the big trucks, sorted out, and then into the vans they go out to delivery to people's homes. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. They said they're certainly open to exploring the use of waterborne delivery. They were not committal to that in any way, but certainly indicated that they thought it was an interesting possibility.
Can I add to this? So I don't have any expertise or training in this. I just want to say that specifically, but just based on my own observations, I've visited 3 Amazon sites in the city. It's very interesting what they're saying to Eric right now, because that description does not at all align with what I observed. I went to a Hunts Point Amazon facility. I went to one multiple times in Queens, and I also went out to Staten Island. So what I've heard and what I've read is generally observed is that the big trucks, the tractor trailers, are mostly coming in at night, and they're docking up and they're unloading all sorts of goods into the warehouse facility. The deliveries are being made by vans, which you'll see around the neighborhood now, double parked, blocking bike lanes, blocking streets all over the place. They've also now moved to larger trucks, which you also see in the neighborhood. I don't know exactly how to describe them. They're significantly larger than the vans. But I just want to add that what I observed at these Amazon facilities, not the one in Staten Island, which there are multiple Staten Island facilities. They're huge. They're well over 1 million square feet in total. But their individual truck traffic was relatively low. I don't know why. But the ones in Queens and Hunts Point just have a continuous flow of traffic. Vans going in and coming out all day. So I have all of those numbers written down, but what they suggest, those are smaller facilities, about 77,000 square feet, 115,000 square feet, so significantly smaller than all of these facilities. And what they suggest is typically it was anywhere from like 0.9 vehicles per minute up to about 1.5 or 1.6 vehicles per minute, depending on how it breaks down. So what you're talking about at that rate is if you scale that up, And I don't know if that's accurate. I don't know if these facilities work like that. But if you scale it up directly, you're talking about thousands of van trips a day, because it just doesn't stop. It just keeps rolling the entire day. Now, maybe that's wrong. That's based on observations that I've made. But I think understanding the way these facilities work is something that has to happen. And the good news is they're already operating in the city, so we can absolutely continue to observe them and understand the way they actually work. And frankly, I wouldn't trust anything Amazon says on this. Amazon is under no compulsion to be honest in any way or to provide any of this information. So I think that we should collect our own information. And sorry, the last thing is when I talked to other community boards around the city, they were also told similar things that Eric was just told, including in Hunts Point. And again, I don't see what the community board was told in any way aligning with what was actually observed at the facilities. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic at all, and this is all subject to revision, but that's just what I've seen so far.
Thanks, John. Do we have additional questions that have come in?
I have Cindy Vandenbosch's hand up next.
Okay, thanks, Cindy.
Hi, I'm just wondering if the community board or anyone who is present at this meeting has any updates on the Freight NYC recommendations that were made a couple of years ago that relate to many of the things that we're discussing this evening, using sort of supporting the intermodal kind of multimodal freight network and using more rails, shifting to the sort of waterfront, clean trucks. I'm just wondering, does anybody here have updates? Because the report that came out with recommendations is a couple of years, I think it was published a couple of years ago. And if not, maybe we should bring in someone from NYC EDC or people who were involved in the Freight NYC recommendations.
I have one point to that, Cindy. Actually, I spoke to somebody who was in the know about this yesterday, and she mentioned that when she was at DOT, there was no freight department. There was nobody in DOT a couple of years ago that was focused on freight at all. She was one of the first with her boss, and frankly, supposedly the delay in the freight report or the delay in the new smart truck thing is that they're scrambling DOT to try and actually figure out who can actually work on this. It's not a sexy thing, evidently. There's nobody in DOT that has a lot of interest in freight management. Surprisingly, it's strange. That's what I heard.
Can I pose that question if Uprose wanted to comment or offer anything on that, just as panelists or any other panelists to the question that Cindy posed? If not, it's yeah.
Whoops, I'm muted.
Okay. Nope. Now we heard you for a second and then you got muted again. Wait, Eva, we can't hear you.
Eva, you're still muted.
Eva.
Okay, I'm mute. I do know there is a new freight person at DOT, and I think that it would be incumbent to meet with them because I think that for a long time, the focus had been on changing the zoning and characteristic of many of these areas. And so there wasn't the pressure to implement Freight NYC. And I think now that may be changing. So I do encourage contacting her.
Okay, thank you. Cindy, is that a new question? Follow up?
I was just going to say it might be good also for us to bring in someone from EDC who actually worked on the freight, who took the lead, because I believe it was published by EDC, and so just if we can put that on a list for potentially someone to bring in to kind of give us any updates that they might have on what actions NYC EDC was going to take following up on Freight NYC.
Yeah, and just for those folks who are joining, this is the full list of everybody who was invited, including the Department of Transportation, who did not come to this meeting. But just in terms of the next meeting, I think you're all making some suggestions, which is great. Are there any other, trying to see if I can see any hands up from community board members that had any other questions to panelists.
No other panelists of any stripe have a hand up right now.
Okay, so then this was going to be the last part.
Now there's one.
Okay, great.
Eric McClure.
Just to follow up on John's comments, which I very much appreciate about the truck traffic at the facilities he's observed. I just did some quick back of the envelope, Googling the capacity of a 53-foot trailer and the capacity of a large Amazon transit van. And it's about 8 vans worth to one 53-foot trailer. So if it was a dozen trailers, that would be about 100 vans, which would jibe with the numbers that Amazon gave us. I think to John's point that anything that they're sharing has to be taken with a grain of salt until it can be proven one way or the other. But that seems roughly consistent, at least based on those calculations, with what they said.
Thank you, Eric. Katie, I have a couple of more hands, 3 more hands now. Should I continue to call them?
Yes, it's super helpful. Thanks, Jeremy.
No problem. Dan Wiley is next.
Oh, yeah, I just want to know if I can share my screen because I actually have a map that I updated that might be helpful.
Dan, I'm going to make you a co-host. Nope, that's the wrong person. I'm going to make you a co-host and you should be able to share your screen now.
Let me see. Now this is an iPhone, so will this work? Let's see.
We see you in younger days right now.
Okay, wait. I hope I'm not showing something bad. Okay, can you see this?
It's a blank screen.
Oh, all right. Well, I guess I can't do this by iPhone. Let me see. Share content. Oh, I see. And I gotta shoot. Okay, let me choose. Okay, tell you can call the next person. I know how to do it. I'll unshare screen and then I'll make it a photo.
We'll let you learn on the job while we call on John
All right.
Fontillis next.
Okay, cool.
I'm going to mute you right now.
Just a note related to what you just said, Eric, in terms of the vans versus the trucks. I mean, well, first off, my understanding is that 53-foot long trucks are actually not legal in New York City. Number one, albeit a 48-foot long truck is legal, and it's not really much of a difference between those two if you're on a bicycle. But I think the idea about if truck traffic for the bigger trucks could be looked at on defined routes, and if it could be forced down certain areas that are away from residential districts such as 28th Street, and if we can have that enforcement, and if they say come at night, maybe there's a chance to improve the safety aspect. Because then the real issue about the vans is it's not really that much different than all the FedEx trucks that are leaving the Sunset Park Industrial Park. And from my point of view, maybe that's something that could be managed better if we were more focused on that as opposed to a lot of 55-foot long trucks running around. It's just trying to get a handle of what in a way the ecosystem of the vehicles are, and really trying to understand how to manage that. So that was my one point. It just seemed that that there is a time and day part issue about when these things are moving around that might work if we looked at certain routes, certain times, and then perhaps look at other ways to manage the smaller cars, smaller trucks that are doing the deliveries, frankly, in the neighborhoods.
Thank you, John. And Dan, great timing. We could see your screen now, and you can unmute yourself.
All right, great. So, yeah, so this is a map that Renee Widdison from Carlos Menchaca's office had worked up, and you can see there's the UPS site to the furthest to the west in Red Hook, and then you have 3 Amazon sites. You have the 280 Richards, which is the old Revere Sugar site, which is on one side of IKEA. And you can see this the amount of square footage that I was told, at least in February, which doesn't make sense because it looks like they're developing half the amount of square footage that they could as of right. And that's the AMZL. And the other AMZL, which Dove Hertz is developing, because the first one on Richards is being developed by Thor Equities. Dove Hertz, that's the DH, is developing the next one, which is on Columbia Street near Halleck. And that's 336,000 square feet, according to them. And then when you go north to Bay Street on Columbia, you have Amazon Fresh, which is more like a Fresh Direct. Both those on Columbia are scheduled for completion, that Fresh Direct, by the summer of this summer. And the one on Beard Street, down Columbia Street, is for May of next year. And then there's the Buckeye Terminal, and that's a little bit of a question mark, but that's a big site on one side of Gowanus Bay, just over the Hamilton Avenue Bridge. And then you have the FedEx site at the Sunset Industrial Park, which is on your Sunset Park side of Gowanus Bay. And yeah, there's a CB7 thing. And that is Dove Hertz also, and they're building a new FedEx building for FedEx deliveries from there. So this is, as I understand it, and I put at the bottom, Dove Hertz has this Staten Island trimodal facility, mostly for waste that's outbound by rail, has dock potential, but isn't using any of the water for transport. So I'll send this along with more. This is part of a presentation that Renee put together that we've been working on. And then since she left, I just edited and read some of the updates when we did our call in February.
Thank you, Dan.
So that's it.
I appreciate that. And I'm going to remove your co-hosting abilities. Katie, I don't have any other panelist hands up. I have a couple of attendee hands up.
That's great. Yeah, if we can go to attendees.
Okay, so I have Felicia DeVita next. Felicia, you can unmute yourself.
I'm sorry. It's actually, my name is Kelly Hardiman. Felicia was kind enough to send me the link. I am a 20th Street resident, and my first meeting I attended regarding the 20th Street truck study was back in 2012. The last we heard on it was in April of 2018. I obviously have many concerns because over that period of time from when we first purchased our property in 2010 to 11 years later, we've only watched the amount of truck traffic increase over and over, as well as the size of the trucks utilizing this. The last we heard on the 20th Street truck study was that, if I am quoting the presenter correctly, all the options suck. This one sucks the least. Nothing has been heard since. And meanwhile, Mr. Hertz submitted his building permits for the Sunset Park Industrial Facility, and the trucks plow up and down the street. There are, every time something is repaved, there are sinkholes forming all over. The infrastructure at 20th Street is never addressed, and no one has done anything to also provide other options. And as Felicia stated, you know, we live in fear that someone on our street is going to get taken down by one of these trucks. They blow the red lights at the intersections all the time. And you know, and knowing a little bit about the environmental review process, I understand that's an as of right development, but the fact that the environmental repercussions of what's going to be happening, especially on this truck route, it's gonna get worse and worse. And there has to be some sort of oversight, because the tractor trailers we get up here, some of them, they can barely make it up the hill. They're so big, and it's a huge concern.
Katie, I actually have information on this. If you wish, I'd be happy to address this now, or I could give her our contact information.
Could you do a little bit of both?
Sure. So first, let me say, please feel free to reach out to the community board tomorrow or beyond. The phone number is 718-854-0003. You could email us at BK, as in Burger King, 07 at CB, like communityboard.nyc.gov. Actually, the issue of the 20th Street truck route dates back to a vote the board had and sent a letter in January of 2010 at the request of people who lived on 20th Street. In fits and starts, they looked at 20th Street, never gave us a solution that was in any way satisfactory. The last one they suggested to us, suggested an alternative route in actually Community Board 6, which they never briefed Community Board 6 about, and then immediately withdrew when there was a terrible accident along the route that they had discussed.
And that Jeremy, is DOT, right?
They is DOT. In August of 2019, we reached out to the former commissioner now, who works for the U.S. Department of Transportation, referencing this, saying we've waited almost 10 years for a 20th Street truck route study. And now, unfortunately, with all this additional truck traffic that we're expecting, 20th Street's not good enough. We need a truck route study for the entire district and truthfully beyond, because trucks don't stop at our borders. So I think somebody else earlier referenced that DOT doesn't really have a freight component right now. The woman who was doing the freight study, my understanding, left in early 2019. I don't believe she has been replaced.
Yes, and yeah, it's definitely, I'm feeling like 20th Street truck route studies are going to rival the BQE cantilever in a few years.
I don't doubt.
But yes, I mean, if there's just because it's, and I remember everyone referencing the freight study previously in previous meetings.
So let me just say, I invite you and your neighbors to reach out to me directly at the community board. I will be happy to chat with you about this outside of this meeting. And of course, you're also welcome to address it in this meeting, but I'd be more than happy to meet with you and your neighbors as well.
And thank you very much.
Jeremy, before we go to other public comment questions and concerns and follow up to the panelists, I just want to capture, we'll get all of this in minutes, but you were talking about the 20th Street route, but then I heard you say that in 2019, another request was sent to the Department of Transportation for a full truck study. Is that?
Yes, and the response we received was a non sequitur. Okay. Answering a question we never asked.
Okay. And to date, we still do not have a truck study that's been provided by.
We continue every conversation I have with DOT. I ask, where's my truck route study? Where's my pedestrian study for 3rd Avenue and 60th?
Okay.
I still have 2 attendees with hands up. I also have panelists hands up, but since we're in attendees, should we continue there?
Yeah, we'll go ahead with attendees and then we'll go back to our panelists. Thanks.
Okay, I have Maria Roca next. Sorry, Maria, you could unmute yourself.
There we go. We got it. So listening to everyone and all the different pieces of as people speak of an ever-growing puzzle, we clearly have the city, the municipal agencies, and which, if I understand correctly, and the NYPD was invited to this meeting. They didn't send anyone. Their highway officer or correct me if what I'm putting together. Am I putting this together?
No,
Were
let me
they invited.
Yeah, no, let me just put who was invited up here. And then I think we have
right.
some suggestions from people of which I've already heard today for the next meeting.
Okay,
So this is who is invited for today.
Okay, so this is clearly all layers of government involved here. The city, sure, the State Department of Transportation, the State Department of Environmental Protection, because we are transgressed by the BQE, which is a state highway. And then I was thinking, well, you know, all those trucks that I've seen over time get out of the BQE at Atlantic Avenue, I think it is the exit, and then get on what do you call it, Flatbush Avenue Extension, make a right, would find their way to 3rd Avenue, and then approach Red Hook and Sunset Park via Nevin Street, 3rd Avenue. The fact that EDC is not here tonight, I'm not surprised. Clearly disappointed. I suspect everyone is very disappointed and maybe even peeved at that fact, because no one layer of government is going to solve this. And because then what they do is they blow the community boards off. Well, we don't have it, whatever, because they know that they send you around in a round robin, but nobody wants to do their job, and no one wants to be accountable. And at this moment in time, with the amount of money that is being put forth, or hopefully being put forth for infrastructure, this is maybe, we may not see this for a while. So if we don't have our act together at the city level, at the state level, not only lay people like most of us, but the people who represent us at all levels of government, and put in our first dibs for this money with a concerted program, a concerted plan of all the issues that everyone here has raised, one more valid than the next, and one cannot function without something else being taken care of. I'm wondering what else has been happening outside of this meeting, where people are sitting together, some of the people who are here tonight, but other people who are sitting down, whether it is formal because someone higher up has called that meeting, and put together a regional plan, because we're talking region here. We're talking the state of New York, we're talking Long Island, if we're talking rail for sure.
Please wrap up.
You know, so I'm wondering, where do we go from here? I guess maybe the way to the question.
Thanks, Maria. And we're going to start to chart that course forward, and captured some of the questions you have in there. We've got a few more points and questions from.
I have Carolina again. Carolina, you could unmute yourself.
Okay, and then we'll head towards the panelists and then talk about those next steps.
All right, did I do better this time?
Thanks, Carolina. We got you.
Great. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of go back to what I said earlier. And because I can't see people, there's no chat, I just want to say that Portside wants to do this event with the freight ferry guy. And if other people are interested, please get in touch. And you can send an email to my first name, looks like Carolina, at Portside, New York, spelloutnewyork.org. The other thing is I really want to push to see if other people have ideas to how to get the city to mandate maritime use of waterfront property. I think it's crazy. It's really frustrating. And so a lot of the talk is about, trucks and the land and everything else. But there's this water highway that's not being used. Zero to negative faith that the EDC is going to solve this with Freight NYC. And I say that after years of dealing with the EDC and listening to maritime people talk to them about ideas, so they aren't going to solve it. But I just think the city as a whole, those of you who are positive, is it a tax thing? Is there some way to do this? Because we have an incredible capacity. If we can't stop e-commerce warehouses, and if we can't make people stop shopping this way, I avoid it like the plague. But if this continues, to get stuff on the water, and that's a shout out for a request for help or advice for people to reach out for conversations, because the water is sitting right there, and that's it. And thank you very much for this meeting. And I really do hope CB6 comes up with its own subcommittee, and that we can work together with CB7 on all of this. It's affecting all of us.
Thank you, Carolina. I have Candida Aguilar Salim next. Candida, you could unmute yourself.
Thank you. I just wanted to make one quick point. I've been following this issue for some time as a concerned resident. And so I did read some interviews with the developers on these facilities. And one of the reasons they stated that they want to build these facilities so close to residential areas is actually that they see the opportunity in same-day deliveries. So what they feel the financial opportunity here is that if a person places an order, that they can get their order in 2 hours. So I think we shouldn't think of these e-commerce sites in the way we have historically seen e-commerce sites, and more in line with what John Santori observed, where there's a constant influx of trucks coming in and out, because these trucks might be half empty, but they have to fulfill a time frame, because that is a new promise that these e-commerce sites, the new expectation for turnover time. So I'm just saying that we should probably maybe not look at these sites and expect truck traffic to be what it is today. And actually it'll probably get much worse.
Thank you. So I have, Katie, I have no more attendees with their hands raised. I do have 2 panelists with their hand up. I have one more with their hand raised. Maria Roca again.
Maria,
Very quick suggestion and request, actually, that, and I didn't do it and I apologize, that as people come up, the attendees, the panelists and elected officials were introduced, but from the public, that they identify themselves, whatever their affiliation is, would be helpful, so that we get to know each other better as a community. And having said that, I'm Maria Roca, founder of Friends of Sunset Park, and 50+ year resident of Sunset Park.
Thank you, Maria.
Thanks, Maria. We'll do that definitely as the meeting, more meetings continue. Should we move back to our panelists? I know they've had their hands up for a while.
Yes, I have John Santori next.
Hi, I'm starting my 3-minute timer here because I'm, just a community member. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who's involved here. Thank you to Eric and to Katie and to everyone. Thanks to the elected officials for being here. Just a couple of suggested steps moving forward. I would say that the first thing is we need to have all the information that the elected officials have collected. We need it all in the public domain. I think that this can't be a private conversation anymore. We can't have private behind the scenes conversations. We need to know everything our elected officials know. We also need to know all of the relevant legislation, both that is being considered and is potentially being introduced, and how it would influence these facilities. We need to understand whether it's true that they cannot be stopped. Councilman Menchaca's office says that they cannot be stopped by legislation. again, because it would be an unconstitutional taking of value. And I think we need to understand the legality of that. It sounds like everybody on this call is against these facilities. Now, I do want to say that I don't know if everybody in these communities are against these facilities. UPS has been distinguished from the other facilities. UPS is a union employer. At least in January of 2019, UPS talked about local hiring, promoting from within. So it tried to distinguish itself from the beginning as saying that it would be a community partner and it would be a good economic development opportunity. But I just want to point out that in addition to all the other concerns about traffic and air pollution and everything else, this is 3 million square feet of industrial space that is being used for this purpose, that the community has had no input on, no ability to influence it whatsoever. This is a project that has nothing to do with maritime access, at least as currently designed. It potentially could. It doesn't have anything to do with the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. To the opposite, it's probably going to increase greenhouse gas emissions unless something changes. These are typically low-wage jobs. These are non-unionized jobs. We all know how Amazon is a vehemently anti-union company that does everything it can to block unionization within its facilities. These are facilities that are, frankly, in many ways notorious around the country for how exhausting the work is. I mean, it's not just the drivers, it's people in these facilities that are working all day on their feet, pickers, like working to literally assist robots as robots move around floors, getting goods together. I don't know exactly what's going on in these facilities, but these facilities have a large track record, and they're being proposed for this community with again, no public discussion. So this whole thing needs to be brought out to the forefront. And I would encourage this board and CB6 and CB7, look, if there's this much opposition, I think we need to say something. I think we need to do protests. I think we need to do press conferences. I think we need to get out in front and say, we are against this. There's 4 of these going up in Red Hook right now. The Sunset Industrial Park has not happened yet. And I think it's time that we take a public stand and say, we're not just going to stand by and allow these developers just to do whatever they want. So I'm 10 seconds over and I'll stop speaking. Thank you.
Good, John, I'm amused and appreciative that you time yourself. And let's acknowledge that this old Samsung here is the official timer, so you were actually right on time. Nick Azadian, I have you next.
My only comment is this, is that so we have representatives from how many different electives on the call right now? 4 or 5 probably. So, and I do recall, Dan, you had mentioned that you're now good friends with the current head of DOT. So can we leverage those relationships to finally get the wish lists of truck studies and everything else to finally come to this board so that we can actually deal in realities of what's going on? I mean, these things have been going on for years and years and years, and it really hampers our ability to really understand what is happening next door to ourselves. And I would strongly, strongly encourage, any help that we can get from our elected officials to get this done, because it's been far too long.
I muted Dan because we have some other panelists. So Dan, we'll come back to you to be able to respond to that. I think I saw Elizabeth had her hand up, but Jeremy, I can't see the order.
Oh, she put her hand down, but it's back up again. So Elizabeth's next. Elizabeth?
A second.
Yes, you're
can you hear
unmuted
me?
now. Yes, we
Yeah,
can hear you.
I guess, I have to agree with John. The truth is that, you've got in this neighborhood an environmental justice organization that's not only been working on infrastructure, but that has been one of the leads in passing the CLCPA and has been working on bringing resources to this community and communities like it. And the fact that elected officials can work on these issues and not even make a phone call, not share documents, not say, how are the recommendations that we're putting together, how can they be integrated into the vision for the industrial waterfront? Where are the challenges, where are the gaps? I was a little surprised that so much was taking place without any outreach. So if we don't know that these things are happening, I can't imagine people on the block, I live here on 44th Street between 7th and 8th, would know about it either. And the deference that is given to folks that are outside of the community and not like reaching out because you've got a brain trust right here in the community. So I would really urge that culture of practice change. It's really kind of dated. And I think that it's a misuse of resources. You have access to a lot of different resources that are internal to this community. So I just wanted to flag that. This proposal is really inconsistent with what we have processed as a consensus in our community to do a green reindustrialization of this waterfront, that this can be a waterfront that can address issues from energy to water to food sovereignty, all of the things that, you know, will be threatened by climate change, and really also address the issue of jobs and the issue of health disparities that exist in this community. And so it completely threatens community-based planning that has taken place in this community for, I would say, over 15 years. So we would urge you in the future to reach out so that we can all work with each other in a way that is productive and strategic, because I think that, you know, time is of the essence, and there's a lot at stake. We certainly can't be supporting an industry that is going to further exacerbate the health disparities that exist in this community. We've got schools going up right in the middle of places that are storm surges, brownfields, places where we've got co-pollutants just literally clogging the air passages of our little children. And so the last thing we need, obviously, are more trucks that are going to make that even worse. And if we are in a situation where we need to negotiate some remediation, then that has to be a communal conversation as well. So I don't know if anyone from Uprose wants to add, but I would, you know, this would be the time.
I'd actually ask them to raise their hand at this point, but I don't see that, and I haven't heard anybody. So Elizabeth, I see your hands up again. I'm going to ask you, and now it's down. Okay.
It's down,
So
it's down, I'm sorry.
no problem, I do it too. Cesar Zuniga.
So I'm going to make a couple of suggestions, Katie. We're over about an hour and a half, and I want to be respectful of people's time. So we've heard a lot, and we've heard a lot of the not just the sort of the anxieties that we all have as a community, but I think we've also heard a bunch of questions that remain unanswered. And so, you know, I, for one, want to make sure that we are on record as a community board, basically that we're gonna lean into this. There's too much at stake here, you know, from healthcare outcomes to quality of life issues to life and death, basically, right? I mean, again, we've seen what Third Avenue has done to some of our neighbors. So I think, Katie, let's sort of have an internal conversation about some of the follow-ups. I know you had some ideas about the follow-ups. Why don't we just transition to putting some of the initial thoughts that we have about what we want to do in terms of a follow-up. But again, I really want to be clear that we're going to make a commitment to continue to organize our community. And it's just so heartwarming to see such an amazing cross-section of stakeholders on this call. And again, I just want to be on record saying that we're really going to lean into this issue.
So there were a lot of perspectives brought up today. I think being able to, you know, pull together some minutes, some notes, a lot of suggestions about what the next meeting looks like. So there's obviously putting together a letter, making sure it goes back to reflect all the issues, all the concerns, all the questions that were asked. We will have a follow-up meeting. We can figure out, you know, when that date gets set. But again, everybody, you took time on a really beautiful day to show up for this district, to show up for Red Hook and across the city. So again, thank you for everyone for making the time. So with that, we will wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, everybody. Please remember you can view this again on our YouTube channel.
Good night.
Have a good night, everybody.
Katie and Jeremy, let's touch base in the morning about some follow-up.
Sounds good. I'll be in the office.
Good night and thank you. Good night from Red Hook. Thank you very much. Having our lobster now.